In a shocking twist that rocked the Galactic Council, Princess Voller publicly declared her intention to marry lowly human diplomat Keith Bailey, sending shockwaves through the assembled alien dignitaries and her own people. Just solar cycles prior, the rebellious Ulian royal had openly mocked and disparaged humanity as primitive backwater upstarts, unworthy of inclusion in galactic affairs. Her sudden reversal and decision to wed a member of the derided species ignited a firestorm of controversy and speculation. As the Ulian king Zarnoth raged at his daughter's betrayal, those close to the princess revealed that a forbidden romance had blossomed between the unlikely pair during the summit. In heated council debates, the quick-witted Keith had challenged Voller's preconceptions about human potential, sparking a reluctant fascination that drove the princess to secretly explore the human station sectors. There she uncovered the truth, that human innovation and technology rivaled the Ulian's own, a reality her father had suppressed to maintain superiority. Keith and Voller's verbal sparring and traded barbs masked a simmering mutual attraction, obvious to all through stolen glances and charged encounters. For the duty-bound princess, their star-crossed bond represented an impossible choice between her heart's desire and millennia of Ulian tradition forbidding mixing with lesser races. With the livid King Zarnoth demanding the council reject Earth's diplomatic overtures, and hawkish Ulian fleet commanders agitating for a preemptive strike against humanity's borders, the repercussions of Voller's decision could light the spark that ignites a catastrophic interstellar war. As rumors emerge that Voller's human consort may have plotted to seduce her to gain political leverage, the besieged lovers find themselves at the epicenter of an unfolding crisis that threatens to consume the galaxy in the fires of conflict. For Earth, the stakes are no less than survival in the face of implacable alien hostility. For Voller and Keith, it is a test of their belief in each other, their peoples, and the chance for a future where both species might coexist in peace, if they can weather the coming storm. Tensions crackled through the air like an ion storm as Princess Voller strode into the station's lush arboretum, her heart pounding in time with her quickening steps. Overhead, the transparent dome revealed a vista of stars, cold and unyielding, a stark contrast to the riot of alien foliage that surrounded her. She moved with purpose, her mind awhirl with conflicting emotions, duty and desire, loyalty and longing. There, in a secluded alcove draped with bioluminescent vines, she found him waiting. Keith Bailey, the human diplomat, who had somehow pierced the armor of her prejudice and touched something deep within her. As their eyes met, Voller felt a surge of warmth, a connection that defied the dictates of her upbringing. "Keith," she breathed, her voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to do." He stepped closer, his gaze intense and yet infinitely gentle. "Princess, I know this isn't easy for you, but you have to know. What you've seen of humanity, it's only the beginning. We have so much more to offer, if only your people would give us a chance." Voller shook her head, torn. "My father, the Ulian Empire, they'll never accept this. They'll see it as a betrayal." Keith reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek with a feather-light touch. "Then let me show you something. Something that could change everything." Intrigued despite herself, Voller followed as Keith led her deeper into the station, down winding corridors and through security checkpoints that parted before his biometric signature. Finally, they emerged into a cavernous hangar, dominated by a sleek, unfamiliar spacecraft that gleamed under the harsh lights. "What is this?" Voller asked, her eyes wide with wonder. Keith grinned, his excitement palpable. "This, Princess, is the future. A new form of FTL drive, one that could cut travel times across the galaxy by orders of magnitude. And it's just the beginning of what we've been working on." As he explained the intricacies of the revolutionary technology, Voller felt a growing sense of awe and of opportunity. If the Ulians could harness this kind of innovation, combine it with their own formidable resources, the possibilities were staggering. In that moment, standing beside the man who had opened her eyes to a new way forward, Voller made a decision. She would forge a new path, one that broke free of the shackles of tradition and prejudice, one that could unite their peoples in a shared destiny among the stars. But even as hope blossomed within her, Voller couldn't shake the sense of foreboding that crept up her spine. Unbeknownst to her, at that very moment, a message was racing across the vastness of space, carrying with it the seeds of their destruction. In his opulent throne room, King Zarnoth stared at the datapad in his trembling hands, his face contorted with rage and disbelief. The images that played across the screen, captured by his agents' spy drones, showed Princess Voller in the arms of the human, their faces alight with undisguised affection. "Betrayal!" Zarnoth snarled, his voice echoing off the gilded walls. "Betrayal of the worst kind." He turned to the figure kneeling before him, Zarn's head bowed in submission. "You have done well to bring this to me. Now we must act swiftly before this abomination can poison the purity of our bloodline." Zarn raised his eyes, a cold smile playing across his lips. "As you command, my king, the human will die for his insolence." As the first Ulian commandos boarded their transport, weapons primed and murder in their hearts, Keith and Voller remained oblivious, lost in dreams of a brighter tomorrow. But the storm was gathering, dark clouds on the horizon, and soon the star-crossed lovers would find themselves fighting for their lives in the future of two civilizations. The stolen shuttle's engines whined as Keith pushed them beyond their rated limits, the hull shuddering under the strain. Princess Voller gripped her seat, fingers tightening, as another barrage of energy bolts from the pursuing Ulian warships lit up the view screen. "We can't keep this up much longer," Keith muttered, his eyes darting between readouts. "One more jump, and we risk a core breach." Volar leaned forward, studying the nav computer. "There," she said, pointing to a small blue orb. "Zephyria, it's neutral territory." Keith nodded grimly and punched in the coordinates. The stars stretched into lines as they made the jump, leaving the Ulian fleet momentarily behind. They dropped out of hyperspace in high orbit around Zephyria, the planet's swirling atmosphere a welcome sight after their harrowing escape. But their respite was short-lived. Alarms blared as the sensors detected multiple ships exiting hyperspace in their wake. "Your father doesn't give up easily," Keith said, guiding their battered craft towards the planet's surface. Volar's reply was cut short by a burst of static from the comm system. A gruff voice crackled through the speakers. "Unidentified vessel, this is Zephyrian Control. State your business." Keith keyed the mic. "This is Keith Bailey, Earth diplomat, requesting immediate asylum and an audience with General Marcus Steele." A tense moment passed before the voice returned. "Confirmed, Ambassador Bailey. You are cleared for landing at coordinates being transmitted now. General Steele will meet you there." As they descended through wispy clouds, Voller placed her hand on Keith's arm. "Who is this General Steele?" Keith's lips quirked in a half-smile. "An old friend, and hopefully, our best chance at getting out of this mess alive." They touched down on a private landing pad nestled in the verdant hills outside the capital. A tall, silver-haired man in an immaculate uniform stood waiting, flanked by a contingent of armed guards. As Keith and Voller emerged from their shuttle, the man strode forward, his face breaking into a wide grin. "Keith, you old dog," he said, clapping the younger man on the shoulder. "When I heard you'd gone and eloped with an alien princess, I thought someone was pulling my leg. But here you are, and in the thick of an interstellar incident to boot." Keith returned the embrace, then turned to Voller. "Princess, may I present General Marcus Steele, retired." "Marcus, this is Princess Voller of the Ulian Empire." Steele bowed with a flourish. "Your Highness, a pleasure to meet you, though I wish it were under better circumstances." His eyes flicked to the sky, where distant flashes signaled the arrival of the Ulian fleet. "We should continue this inside. Follow me." As they hurried towards a nearby bunker, Steele spoke in low tones. "I've already begun making arrangements. We can offer you temporary asylum here on Zephyria, but it won't hold for long against a determined Ulian assault." Inside the bunker's command center, screens flickered with real-time data on the unfolding crisis. Steele turned to face the couple, his expression grave. "There's only one way I can see to legitimize your union in the eyes of both your peoples. We need to get you married, and fast." Keith blinked in surprise. "Married? Here?" Steele shook his head. "Not here. Aboard the HMS Intrepid, our flagship currently in orbit, it'll give the ceremony the weight of official human sanction. Volar squeezed Keith's hand. I'm ready if you are. Before Keith could reply, alarms blared throughout the bunker. A junior officer rushed up to Steele, his face pale. Sir, we've detected a massive hyperspace signature. It's an Ullian dreadnought. Steele's face hardened. Looks like King Zarnoth decided to handle this personally. We're out of time. You two with me. We're heading for orbit now. As they raced for the shuttle bay, none of them noticed the small, spherical drone that detached itself from the bunker's wall and zipped after them, its camera eye fixed on the fleeing couple. High above Zephyria, aboard the gleaming bridge of his personal dreadnought, King Zarnoth watched the feed from his spy drone with narrowed eyes. His voice was cold as space itself when he spoke. So, the humans think they can steal my daughter and mock our traditions? He turned to his first officer. Prepare boarding parties. I will drag Volar back myself if I must. The massive dreadnought loomed ever closer to the Intrepid, weapons charged and ready to unleash devastation upon the human vessel that dared harbor the renegade princess. The Intrepid's engines roared to life as it broke free from Zephyria's orbit, carrying Keith, Volar, and General Steele away from the looming threat of King Zarnoth's dreadnought. As they raced through the star-studded void, Keith and Volar exchanged hurried vows in the ship's observation deck, their union officiated by Steele himself. But their moment of joy was short-lived. The pursuing Ullian forces pushed them into a months-long game of cat and mouse across the galaxy, forcing the newlyweds to seek refuge on distant outposts and neutral worlds. It was during a brief respite on the frontier world of Novus Prime that Volar first noticed the changes in her body. The medbay's diagnostic holodisplay confirmed what she had begun to suspect. She was carrying a child, their child. Keith's eyes widened as he processed the news. A baby? But how is that even possible? Dr. Alara Venn, the station's chief xenobiologist, shook her head in wonder. It shouldn't be. The genetic differences between humans and Ullians are vast. And yet, she gestured at the rotating hologram of the developing fetus. Here we are. As the implications sank in, Keith and Volar's initial elation gave way to a gnawing concern. This unprecedented pregnancy would undoubtedly complicate their already precarious situation. Their fears were realized when King Zarnoth's furious transmission crackled through the comm system, demanding the immediate return of his daughter and unborn grandchild to Ullian space. That abomination you carry must be raised in accordance with our sacred traditions, Zarnoth snarled, his face contorted with rage. It is the only way to preserve the purity of our royal lineage. Keith stood firm, his teeth clenched. Our child will know both worlds, Your Majesty. They'll have the freedom to embrace the best of human and Ullian culture. The king's eyes narrowed dangerously. You dare defy me, human? This is not a negotiation. As the screen went dark, Keith turned to Volar, his expression softening. We'll find a way through this. Together. In the following weeks, a flurry of diplomatic activity unfolded across known space. The news of the hybrid pregnancy sparked heated debates in the corridors of power on both Earth and Ullia Prime. Medical experts from both species convened, grappling with the unique challenges posed by the interspecies gestation. A state-of-the-art medical facility was hastily constructed on Novus Prime, its gleaming white halls soon filled with a mix of human and Ullian physicians. Dr. Venn led the team, working tirelessly to ensure the health of both mother and child. As Volar's pregnancy progressed, Keith threw himself into his next diplomatic initiative. He saw an opportunity to further cement the fragile alliance between their peoples. The Tarazi system, Keith explained to General Steele over a secure holocall. It's perfect, resource-rich, barely populated, and technically under Ullian control. If we can establish a human colony there, it could be a huge step forward for integration. Steele nodded thoughtfully. It's ambitious, I'll give you that. But the xenophobic factions in the Ullian nobility won't take kindly to humans settling in their backyard. Keith's eyes gleamed with dedication. That's exactly why we need to do it. We have to show them that coexistence is possible. As Keith worked to broker the Tarazi agreement, Voller focused on her health and the impending birth. She spent long hours in meditation, communing with the life growing within her. "I can feel their strength," she confided to Keith one night, her hand resting on her swollen belly. "They carry the best of both our peoples." Keith smiled, placing his hand over hers. "They'll need that strength. The galaxy they're being born into isn't an easy one." Little did they know, as they dreamed of a brighter future for their child, that King Zarnoth was already setting plans in motion that would threaten everything they had worked for. In the shadows of the Ulian court, weapons and credits changed hands, destined for the extremist groups on Tarazi. The storm clouds were gathering once more, and the fragile peace that Keith and Voller had fought so hard to build was about to be tested like never before. The fragile peace Keith and Voller had fought to build shattered like glass beneath the weight of escalating violence on Tarazi. Keith's comm unit buzzed incessantly with reports of fresh attacks on human outposts, each more brutal than the last. He paced the length of his makeshift command center, face etched with lines of worry. "Another settlement hit," he muttered, scanning the latest intelligence brief. "Ulian weapons signatures all over it." General Steele's hologram flickered to life nearby. "It's getting worse, Keith. The colonists are demanding protection, and Earth's parliament is breathing down my neck." Keith ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "I know, Marcus, but if we commit military forces, we risk—" His words died as an aide burst into the room, face ashen. "Sir, it's Princess Voller. She's gone into labor." The world seemed to tilt beneath Keith's feet. "What? But it's too early." He sprinted through the corridors of the medical facility, heart pounding. The scene that greeted him in the delivery room was chaos. Doctors and nurses swarmed around Voller, their faces grim beneath surgical masks. "Her vitals are crashing," Dr. Venn barked. "We need to perform an emergency cesarean now." Keith gripped Voller's hand, her skin clammy and pale. "Hold on," he whispered. "Please, just hold on." The next hours passed in a blur of beeping monitors and terse medical jargon. When Keith finally heard his child's first cry, relief flooded through him, only to be replaced by icy dread as alarms shrieked to life around Voller's bed. "She's coding!" a nurse shouted. Keith watched helplessly as the medical team fought to stabilize Voller. When the frenzy finally subsided, Dr. Venn approached with a solemn expression. "We've induced a coma," she explained softly. "It's the best chance we have of saving her." Keith's world narrowed to the steady rise and fall of Voller's chest, the rhythmic beep of her heart monitor. He wanted nothing more than to stay by her side, but the galaxy wouldn't grant him that luxury. His comm unit chirped urgently. "Ambassador, we have a situation," General Steele's voice crackled. "We've intercepted communications. It's Zarnoth. He's been backing the insurgents all along." Keith's fists clenched. "Send me everything you have." The evidence was damning. Weapons shipments, covert funding, strategic intel, all traced back to the Ulian king. Keith stared at the datapad, rage building in his chest. "Sir," an aide interrupted hesitantly, "the human settlers on Tarazi, they're demanding immediate evacuation or military intervention. What are your orders?" Keith closed his eyes, the weight of billions of lives pressing down on his shoulders. In that moment, he made a choice that would alter the course of galactic history. "Get me a direct line to every human world and outpost," he commanded. "It's time we remind the galaxy what humanity is capable of when pushed too far." Hours later, Keith stood before a hastily assembled fleet of civilian ships, converted freighters, and mothballed military vessels. A ragtag armada united by a common purpose. "We didn't start this war," Keith's voice rang out across the comm channels, "but by God, we're going to finish it." As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, bound for Tarazi, Keith allowed himself one final glance at the medical bay where Voller lay. He touched the vid screen gently. "I'll make this right," he promised. "For you, for our child, for all of us." The vast emptiness of space stretched before them, pregnant with the promise of the battle to come. Humanity's perseverance was about to be tested like never before, and the galaxy would never be the same.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.